On this edition of Miniology TV, we're at Sonoma Raceway in Sonoma, California for the testing of the twin-engine Mini Cooper.
So, I mean, it's from the last time we ran it and all the adjustments and all the horsepower is just great. I'm still really happy. The horsepower is better than I expected. Car handling from all the adjustments, going to a slick, raising the wing and putting a gurney flap and putting more downforce on it, really stabilized the car. It's really great. All the changes we did from the other week to now is just absolutely great. So this car, by having two engines, supposed to be two junkyard engines with squeezing the top end to have roughly 250 horsepower, is the deal.
And with me, I have Jaques Andres of Bay Bridge Motors, which is now Bay Bridge Bimmers and Minis, or Minis and Bimmers.
Something like that, yep.
There we go, Jaques.
Yep. Hey, Norm.
Thanks for joining us, and I do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Just wanted to talk to you a little bit about today, first of all, briefly, but then go back into the build of the car. And one of the things is what got you to do this? What promoted or prompted you to design this and do this thing?
I guess we'll start with the original build of the car, really kind of derived of different racing programs that I was involved with. And as the programs evolved, they became bigger cars, and as they became bigger cars, I ended up getting screened further out of them. We started with the Mini Cooper, of course, and ran really well at the 25-hour enduro, because that's what I like to do these days, is endurance racing. So at the 25-hour enduro, we ran this car back in 02 and 03, had a real good time with it, one of the first minis on the racetrack. It was really great. Following it, the team ended up getting a BMW, a bigger Grand Am Cup car with 460 horsepower. We ended up running that car, and I ended up phasing further out of that program because I was less involved. I'm usually a car builder, driver, and crew chief, and I like to make dinner in the middle of the night as well. So as I was getting pushed further out of somebody else's BMW program, I decided to take more of my time with motorcycles and jet skis. I do a lot of other sports. After, 2008 was a time that I started thinking about going back to racing again. If I were to do it, I wanted to have a car that could run in the top 5 of that field. And in order to do that, I needed 500 plus horsepower, almost 600 horsepower. So a 600 horsepower engine for the Mini is about $40,000, which is not something that's in the wallet. So a friend of mine said, hey, well, why don't you try to put 2 engines in it? You could get 2 250 horsepower engines that are affordable and put them in the car and run it. I said, I don't know. I don't think that's really going to make a lot of sense. So I sat on it for a week or two, and then I thought, I think I could do that, and I really like interesting projects. So I started on the project, and it's about 2 to 2.5 years of on and off of it in between my motorcycle stuff and other stuff that I do. And then finally made the big push this year between the last 25-hour, which was in December, to now here in July, to finish the car and start testing it before the next. And in this last 2 days, we've had some mechanical mishaps at trying to figure it out, but all engine and normal race car stuff. We're really pleased with the overall horsepower and the overall handling of the car. I couldn't be more happy about the way it's performing right now. And it's just a matter of working out our engines to be reliable. Again, I'm not fighting any of the shifting, any of the clutch stuff, any of the braking, or any of the handling. All of that stuff seems to work really well out of the box. What we're fighting is your typical race car stuff where you have a modified engine and it runs either warm or cold or sends a connecting rod out the side of the engine, one or the other. Standard, everybody else goes through it. But as for fighting for any of the engineering for shifting, middle of the corner, braking, all those things are really normal, and I'm ecstatic. I was just on the radio just announcing how overtaken I was with it.
Well, you said basically it was out of the box, but looking at this and watching how you've developed this, it's a little further than just out of the box. So that being said, the challenge of running a single single gas pedal that runs both engines, a single clutch that runs both, and a single shifter that does shifts both transmissions. And,
Yep.
and they work in synchro. And I'm saying, my question to you is, that being set aside, is what were the biggest challenges so far that you've come up against?
The biggest challenges was writer's block. Just as an author does a book, for him to get up in the morning and go, I'm going to finish this part of the chapter. They're so labor intensive to build a whole engine and running gear on the back of the car. This was really the biggest challenge, is committing myself to the hours of fabrication. The points of engineering and the challenging of engineering, a lot of people don't know, but this is a fly-by-wire electronic throttle. It's a shift cable. It's not a shift linkage. Clutch master cylinders are right next to each other on their pedals. All of those engineering, hurdles were actually very easy. Those were not the problem. That's why we have so much success with that engineering working today. Really, again, the biggest challenge that I have was taking that weekend or after the day of work, going, I'm going to put in 2 hours every day for that week. I'm going to go and spend my whole weekend and really make sure I finish the whole bulkhead, and I'm going to fix the radiator stuff, and I'm going to finish mounting the engine, and all those hard hours and labor, as just as an author does in writing his story and putting it down chapter by chapter. And that's really the biggest challenge, is taking a 1,000-hour project and getting it done. Really getting the project done has been the biggest challenge. And again, we're not totally done now, but we are at the point where it's a good looking car and we're starting to test it, and we are fast with the car. And so, we're really, really pleased with that. But again, my biggest challenge was getting up in the morning and going, okay, what are we going to accomplish today now that's going to get us a complete car then?
I do see it, but I have to say that the piping, the ducting, the fitting of all the suspension pieces and everything else had to take a lot of thought. And you don't have a book that tells you how to do this, so this had to come from your
right.
education and your history and your background, and a lot of ingenuity. God, I watch it and I'm truly amazed at how well everything seems to work together.
Yeah, thank you. Referring to that, there are some people who go to bed at night and it takes them 7 minutes. Then there are some people it takes 2 hours. I'm the guy it takes 2 hours. So for that 2 hours time, I'm visualizing and placing all the little metal parts and how they're going to be fabricated, where I'm going to put my ducting, and just hours and hours of a photographic visual memory of how I'm going to do each project. And that's really how that came down. Now, fortunately, this is not the first car I built. I now have a road car business, but prior, I used to be on this pit lane at the age of 20, just like one of these mechanics down the road here looking after some guy's super $1 million car he couldn't barely drive down the street. All throughout my 20s. And ended up building sports racers for different teams up here and different drivers all through my 20s and in the 90s and all that stuff. So I really learned all the race car stuff through that period of my life. Now with the street car business, which is Bay Bridge Bimmers and Minis, we're servicing our clientele all throughout the Bay Area, the BMWs and the Minis that rely on getting to work, especially if BART is going to go on strike today, right?
Yep.
So those are the most important clients to me, and those clients have provided me the time and the economics for me to build my own projects. And that's really where the whole full circle has come. Or I would have not had the economics or the support that I have now to build such a car that it is.
Let me ask you this then. What is your goal? I mean, I know that your intent is to run the 25 hours of Thunder Hill.
Right.
And so to get from where you are today to a podium finish, what's that going to take?
Well, like anything in racing, it takes practice, right? It takes doing your homework, going out there and testing like that we're doing today, refining all of your project, having a mission to do a certain performance or a certain position. Ours is to run top 5 out of an 80 car field in the 25 hour. Not only is it to run the first twin engine car in a semi-pro race environment in history, but it's really to run a car, a Mini, down the straightaway faster than those Porsches and the BMs, right? Those guys are spending $150,000 on their car. They're going to have a little $30,000 Mini beat them up down the straightaway. That's tickling my hide. And that's what I want to do.
And we're looking to have thousands of Mini fans watching you and cheering you on. So
Hopefully. More than that, it's just that, this sort of project, if you have the interest, the physical ability to fabricate, and more importantly, the drive to do something like writing and completing a whole book, that's what's going to get you out here, rather than writing a checkbook for somebody's prepared race car that's already been done. They go out and they run it, and they're all there just about the position. This is, as I was talking about before, is what I call the moonshine effort, right? And the moonshine effort was, back in the day, these guys were running from the cops. They were tweaking their cars to make them better, and then they found it to be so much fun that they built a racetrack for them to run against each other. And then each weekend, they came out with their own innovation to outbeat the other guy. These guys got out there with their friends and raced against each other like friends. Nowadays, it's corporate. It's all about the checkbook that is written down, and a lot of this moonshine effort has been lost. This is kind of a modern car moonshine effort.
Well, we're all impressed, I have to say.
So much.
And I've been and just watching you, and I can see and feel your enthusiasm and your excitement and your pride in this project. And we're just going to stick with you all the way through and
Terrific.
Follow you and everything we can to support you. And I call on all of our other Mini fans out there to keep an eye on this car and this project, because it's going to bring a lot of pride to the Mini fans out there.
Great, Norm. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Jaques, what I'd like to do is take a little tour of the car, if we could, to show our listeners and our watchers to see what they can do. If you wouldn't mind maybe pointing out on the cockpit some of the additions you've had to make.
Right, great. Well, we'll open up the door here, and this is actually pretty neat. We'll put my gloves out of there. Well, I mean, that really is the race door. Yeah. But this is my pretend the thing I kept out of there is sports car LMP driver's cockpit, right? So it's a carbon/wood dashboard that wraps all the way around and covers the passenger side, which there's a whole fuel cell in. We've got two special race car dashboards, one for the front engine, one for the rear engine. But this whole driver's cockpit here is designed to provide a bulkhead between the fuel system and the driver. Also provide a coziness rather than an open shell, which is traditional to GT build cars, where it's just a metal interior and so forth. This one, I really had to do kind of a zoomy dashboard, so it's a whole wraparound shape, very contemporary, and actually I really enjoyed making the dashboard on this. It's something that not many people have done with a sedan car, and making a wraparound dashboard, so it's been real fun. So this is kind of the driver compartment, very quiet, very comfortable ride. And again, I kept the rug in from the factory Mini to keep your feet all snuggy through the 25-hour venue. These things, you really have to have comfort involved in your event throughout a long stint. So the dashboard and the driver compartment in the middle of the car alone has been like 200 hours to 300 hours of effort. Really a long process, and a lot of it was glue, wood, carbon composites on the bottom, carbon composites on the top. I left it rough rather than being super shiny composites. It didn't matter to me. And we've got the carbon in there, we've got the structure in there, and again, this build, the car normally weighs 2,500 pounds with the two engines, a roll cage, a fuel system, and all the goodies, the big brakes and all this stuff, even heavy wheels, which I don't have the money for the Forge super light wheels. We're at 26.9 on the overall weight, so I'm really pleased with the overall weight of the car. This is not a 3,000 pound car. This is still weighs out only 100 pounds heavier than the Porsches out there. And again, that's a $150,000 car with another $100,000 worth of race stuff in it, and we're only 100 pounds overweight from them, but we're 100 horsepower more than them. So hopefully we'll have a little bit of a dice and see what happens at the end of the event. But the middle of the car in itself has been a project that has been a wrestle. When you were talking about staying up at night and how I'm going to build this and how I'm going to shape that, well, this took up a lot of my mind power, just the middle of the car. So then we'll go around the front of the car, and this is just a standard front engine that we've run before. Not very exciting in here. Everybody's got, people have plenty of shiny stuff that they've done with their engines. We've just gone big on the intercooler, a mild top end build. It's roughly a 240 to 250 horsepower engine on the front. Nothing exciting and out of the norm here. It's supposed to be reliable, as it's been so far. So then just coming around the car, this is where it gets a little interesting. This will be the fast fuel system, so we'll be able to put in 30 gallons within maybe 20 or 18 seconds, so that's a big deal. And in here also, when I was talking about the middle of the car and being so much effort, this is part of that effort. So if you look in there, you can see there's a lot of effort going into placing the fueling system, fast fueling system, the fire extinguisher, all of the things to create a bulkhead between the driver and have a fuel right next to his lap. This is kind of an interesting deal. For most people who have done ducts like R5s or rear engine sedan car stuff, they've gone traditionally with a scoop that protrudes out to capture air and force air in through the radiators. Being into aerodynamics as I am, I decided to pull my air through the radiators rather than push my air. So we have big ducts that you don't normally see, but yet you can see the whole radiator, work on your radiators, and see where everything is going on in there. So this is a little bit different design than what most people have ever done in sedans. Pull the air out through the engine compartment, suck it in through the sides, and that's why these are so big compared to anything else that you've seen other people build. So this in itself, the aero design and dynamics of the cooling of the rear engine is contemporary. This wing here, actually, I'm proud to say this wing I pulled out of a rummage pile from Kevin Buckler's old Porsche efforts back in the late 90s or something, when they used to run Daytona a lot in all their Porsches. This was a banana wing that really only proved to work in low-speed wing environments. So it really slowed the Porsches down for Daytona. They didn't like it. Has a really big, thick cord. So anytime you see thick cord and a wraparound wing, is really designed there for low-speed operation. I actually have a second element wing that I'm hand making myself that matches the top of this, that'll be up in the airstream for only high-speed downforce. So the downforce of this wing has been kind of interesting, but a good reason why I can run this banana wing is because the main cord is actually out of the airstream. So this main cord really here is designed to bring air around the back of the car, provide some downforce, but not slow the car down, and that's why it's out of the airstream from the roof. But the second element that will come up further, about 4 inches higher, will be designed to only work past 65 miles an hour. So the rear wing will be pretty exciting by the next turnaround. And this is the placement of the rear engine. This has actually been, this part has been fun. All the things I've really only had to do here was make shock towers for the rear, bring the shocks through wheelhouse through to the inner part of the car. So shock towers being built, sway bar is up above the suspension line, still works the same process. Most people have their sway bar down below, right? This one, there wasn't any room because there was an exhaust. And it stays cooler and I can work with it, so it's just fine right there. What also is kind of interesting here is curved radiators from motorcycle R1 stuff. So this is a traditional radiator that you see in sport bikes. They blow off a lot of heat. It has a nice shape to build a nice open compartment for me to drop the engine in and out and not have any obstruction for the radiators. So we're really pleased on how the radiator boxes came out. And again, that is carbon fiber composites, wood and glue. Wood for my shape, right. Carbon composites for the top and bottom for my structure, and I'm not doing all these rivets and aluminum and steel, and that's how you have two engines for only 150 pounds heavier than a normal car, was because of that style of fabrication.
Gotcha, and you got your intercooler up there?
Yeah, and this is like a typical, they did this intercooler style. I'm not innovative on this. This is what the rally guys did in the late 80s and the early 90s. When they ran a rear engine like this is exactly what they did. They did put an intercooler up in the roof, big ducts down the top. It worked just fine.
One of the things I really enjoy about your ducting and everything else is that this car, when it's out on the track, it looks like a slightly modified R53.
Right, that's right.
Not what we
big
know
fenders,
you got into it.
Yeah, right.
It looks like, and everybody can relate to that. It looks like their car. You don't see these big scoops hanging out.
There's a little bit of wing stuff in there, but for the most part, the body is still streamlined and very much a Mini Cooper. That's right.
So this, though, you had to all the mounting points, all the framing, all the setups and engine mounts. This was something you had to kind of adapt and create yourself.
Yeah, again, it wasn't too hard because what I'm doing in the rear is I'm simulating a lot what's on the front. Again, I didn't want to build my own suspension this time. So we have the same suspension cradle in the front than we do have in the rear, okay? So all I had to do was come up with motor mounts that are similar on the front to the right side, motor mounts that are similar to the left, other than they have an aluminum motor mount on the front of the car, and this is a steel motor mount. And what I've done differently than a lot of people, you see, most people would run tubes up the guazoo out here. I wanted to keep my weight down, but keep the structure there. So a lot of this has small tube support. So all these little veins are there for rigidity rather than a big hefty piece of metal. We're doing a lot of vein type support in there. And part of the reason why I did vein support fabrication in there is that if there is flex in my motor mounts, if there's flex in my sway bars, I'm going to see little cracks out of one of them, or one of them are going to start to fail, where I can, okay, well, I'm going to have to add more support to the whole thing rather than one big glob of metal that just fails all in itself. So I made a lot of individual, like, spider legs, as you would say. So it's keep the weight down and taking the flex out and provided a way for me to watch it flexing and breaking for me to repair it down the line if I needed.
I got a chance to watch some of your videos you took from test day 1,
right,
where you mounted a camera inside of here, and
right,
basically that was to check everything and see how it does actually perform under load,
right, that's right,
on the track and going through braking and turns and all the flex in all the joints and the piping and everything else.
Right.
And I'm sure you gained a tremendous amount from that, or what it did is validate what you actually hope to achieve.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that because that video there is the one that sealed the deal with my wife. She goes, "Are you sure your car is going to be strong enough? Is your race car safe?" And I said, "Well, first of all, you called a race car and then you put safe in the same sentence." Well, we try on that, but where race cars aren't there for safety, or we would be rowboating in a little pond, right? So what I did is I actually brought that video home. And I said, "Honey, let's look at Jaques fabrication here. You see, if you see anything that looks wobbly or going to fall apart on me in a high-speed corner, you let me know." So we both looked at the video together. We saw the engine, the gearbox shifting, we saw the suspension moving, and everything in that video was really super solid, super stable. Everybody who saw that video was like, "Hey, that looks like something that's not going to move around and last for the long haul." And it sealed the deal with the wife.
Oh, congratulations.
Engine compartment video.
That is a major accomplishment. At least it would be at my house.
Yeah.
So one of the things I just like to find out, the feel for the car versus like an R53 or even
he has his
an
cars
R56, whatever the case may be. But how does this feel, handle, and perform in relationship to a street Mini?
Nothing bad said about a street Mini, but Minis drive like a wheelbarrow.
Right, I remember you saying that.
They do that, okay? Now, this car, when it was just a front engine and drove like a wheelbarrow, still set the lap record. Still a very fast car. A different style of driving. Granted, all the weight and all the braking, all the engines, all just the front end of the car, and that's why I call it a wheelbarrow. So now with this change, this car drives actually a little bit more traditional as a rear-wheel drive, more of a balanced car. Again, it's heavier, so it's going to get around me a little bit more, where in the front engine car prior, I could fly through the high-speed stuff with one finger on the handlebars. Now, I have to kind of really hold on to the handlebars through the high-speed stuff. And here I go again, say handlebars versus steering wheel, because I do so many motorcycle to car stuff. But it's all the same to me. So in overall car handling, I'm really, really pleased with the balance of the car. And it's just one part of it that's been fun to try to engineer. And you know, just from the last test day to this test day, the changes that Eric and I did really made some great improvements. I was really pleased with it. So again, the real difference between a normal front engine Mini and this all-wheel drive Mini is that this car is a little bit better balanced through the corner, but it's heavier and not as nimble. So there's a bit of give and take. Again, the biggest thing that we need to give to this car is a ton of horsepower for me to kick those Porsches down the line, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if it drives like a wheelbarrow or an all-wheel drive Audi in the corner, I don't care as long as I kick their ass down the straightaway. Now, fortunately, I have a little bit of driving experience behind me, so I can do something to wrestle the car around the corner a bit. But again, one of the biggest goals was to get it down the straightaway and then I work the car through the middle of the corners. Again, like, I love the car before and I love the car now, the way it handles either or. But last time, I only had 250 horsepower on 390 horsepower worth of competition. So that's really what the big difference is. I don't have $40,000 for a 600 horsepower engine, but I had 1,000 hours worth of hand time to provide me the same horsepower with an additional engine.
Wow. Well, Jaques, we're really impressed. Like, I can't just say it enough, but I'm with the whole design, the looks, the style, the effort, everything's been coming together, and we just are pulling for you. You
Great.
don't know how much. It's very exciting for Miniology, for instance, but also for the Mini community to have somebody to root for, because right now there's not that many Minis running in the U.S. and competition, and this will put you back up on the top. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for your effort, and we'll be following you every test day and the race day and everything else in between.
Great. Thanks,
all right.
Norm.
Thank you. In closing here at Sonoma Raceway, I just wanted to recap this day. May, to some people, figured there was only 20 laps that we were able to run out on the track today, but in essence, Jaques is just thrilled with the performance of the car and how everything came together. The suspension, the shifting, the engine performance, and everything else. The mechanical difficulties that we encountered are easily overcome, and it's not a design issue. So he's thrilled, and we will be back here again to watch him and watch his progress. And hopefully at December we'll be at Thunder Hill to watch him take at least a podium finish at the 25 Hours of Thunder Hill. This is Norm Nelson from Miniology TV.